So the fifth Doctor was no more. But then you get the sixth Doctor with Colin Baker. And more and more, looking back on it, I come pretty solid to the conclusion that Colin Baker was easily one of these missed opportunities for Doctor Who. And it's all unfortunate. He gets some justice in his big finish performances, which are really good, and shows that he does know how to perform a really good Doctor. Well, it's just the sad circumstances of what happened there. But anyway, his first adventure is the Twin Dilemma, which is it's an odd thing because that was actually the final episode of that season, or series as the British call it, which was that's Peter Davison's season. But it's like the penultimate adventure. He regenerates and is gone, and so the new Doctor has to finish it out. It's okay. It might have worked out better had that been like kind of like what they did with Tom Baker going out, where they had this sort of trilogy of adventures with Keeper Truck and Legopolis, and then the final chapter was Castrovalva. Of course, that was over two different seasons, but as far as a connected narrative, it could have done. A lot of the sets and the location shots looked to be the same thing. And maybe it was all shot very closely. I'd have to go back and listen to some commentaries and stuff. Maybe that was the case. And of course, shows are done like that. A lot of the TARDIS stuff was probably shot after the fact or what have you, and that sort of thing. But anyway, Twin Dilemma, which features these super duper mathematician boys who are twins. Get it? Played by two young boys who probably weren't ready for prime time, but it's just their abilities. That's the real plot point of the whole story, but they're going to be used to change the orbit of these planets to supposedly put them in a more habitable position, but it's all a nefarious plot by Maester, this giant caterpillar guy who kind of looks like Mr. Mind from Captain Marvel, only really big. And he's manipulating an old Time Lord who just so happens to be an old mentor of the Doctor. Now, time and again, I kept thinking, oh, is this supposed to be the same guy that was, in Planet of the Spiders? I don't think so. He has a different name and everything, although I always remembered it that he was able to project himself like that Time Lord was, but I guess it was just the teleport device in this episode. The big thing about this episode, it's a clumsy episode. There's some elements of it I think are fine, but it's roundly despised by a lot of people, saying it's one of the worst. I don't think it deserves that to that extent. The main thing is the regeneration happens and there's something wrong with it. And this is evidenced by these psychotic episodes of Colin Baker's Doctor. And he seems to be going a little loony here, becomes extremely paranoid, and even attacks Perry, literally strangles her. Which that's used as the means by which he breaks supposedly free of the psychosis, but it actually continues on where he's a bit of a coward, it appears, and puts Perry in danger and all this sort of stuff. The thing about it is that it's such a blatant ordeal to throw in there, is that should have been a big part of the overall story. It isn't. It's quickly abandoned. And I think that's the mistake, because it could have been that he's suffering from some really dangerous aspect of regeneration, that it can do this to you. This is the sort of thing that can go into an explanation for Baruso turning bad and stuff like that, that sometimes the regenerations just don't work very well. And that's why there's certain risk to it. And that could have been explored, especially since you already had another Time Lord in the story who could have figured this out and helped him. So it was all set up and he just didn't follow through. So then it's just thrown in there for the shock of the Doctor attacking his companion like that, which turned a lot of people off. So is ultimately pointless because there was nothing to it, and regeneration was never fully explored, even in current Who, which it really needed to be in the current series that they did. You really, really needed to deal with that. But it was all about superficial virtue signaling and whatnot. But anyway, here it's just, I don't know, some strange misstep. It just goes on through this plot, about the planets and the kids being kidnapped and used and all that. So, as for Colin Baker himself, I don't have a problem with the choices that he was making here. And I don't know how much of that was back and forth between him and John Nathan Turner, because he had such a tight control over things about how he wanted his doctors to be. But the ultimate idea, and Colin Baker's talked about this, was that he was going to be this sort of younger version of the William Hartnell Doctor. That he's come full circle and he's kind of back to the personality that it originally was. And this plays out rather well. One of the things that's a common theme among the doctors is not just an eccentric nature, but a bit of arrogance. You see it quite a bit. You didn't get a lot of it with Peter Davison's doctor, but it was there from time to time. But he, I guess, was the nicest of the doctors. But certainly, Tom Baker would show it a lot, and John Pertwee did, and so they just had that. And Hartnell was certainly that. He was very could be very stubborn and short with his companions, who were, they just weren't at his intellectual level and that sort of thing, and all that stuff. So it fit in well, and maybe you can even say that it was kind of a reset for the Doctor's personality after being such a nice guy. He's back to being this the a-hole Doctor, which I'm perfectly fine with because it's funny, and the back and forth and Perry getting frustrated with him and all that. It worked, and I think that was an opportunity for probably some great Doctor Who. It didn't turn out that way, but I thought Colin Baker's performance is not bad. It's pretty good in that take. They saddled him with this god-awful costume, and I've said this plenty of times. The Doctor, of course, has a costume, and that's theater, that's television and film. Everybody does, even the companions have costumes. But it's the idea of not being so blatantly on the nose. It's not a superhero comic book story where they got to wear the cape and everything. They're just clothes. And the previous Doctors were able to change clothes. So Tom Baker had a style. He had the scarf, but his outfit, it was changing all the time, but it was always within the same type of style that his doctor preferred. Same thing with Pertwee. He had the ruffled shirt, sure, but he had different versions of all of those outfits. Peter Davison, and I guess Tom Baker to his last season, is obviously he's stuck in the maroon suit, which made no sense for his doctor. And then you have Peter Davison, who's great, the cricket outfit. That's a good idea, but not the same one over and over again. And that's what they stuck him with. And then here comes poor Colin Baker, who gets the absolute worst of the worst. And it doesn't make any sense, especially since he's doing this arrogant doctor who you would think would be more concerned about his appearance than the previous ones. He's the type of guy that if he gets some dirt on his shoes, he's going to be upset about it, whereas doctors like Baker and certainly Troughton's doctor wouldn't care that much. But this doctor would. Probably Pertwee would too, a little bit. But so the idea that he would wear this clown outfit didn't make any sense. It sort of made sense that he was, having his psychotic episodes at the outset. But you can imagine that by the end of it, he's like throwing the coat away and looking at Perry. I can't believe you let me walk around in that, like it was all her fault. That's kind of how they would end it. And then he just has, I think he wanted a black suit. That probably would have been similar to what Capaldi ended up in, He actually, while he's looking for new clothes to put on, I think it looks like I guess it's supposed to be, I don't know if it really, obviously probably wasn't really was, but it was supposed to look like it was one of Pertwee's jackets. That could have worked, He just doesn't wear the ruffled shirt, something like that, But it's just a bad idea all around. They said it was John Nathan Turner's thinking of himself, and that he had this penchant for wearing these Hawaiian shirts. So he wanted the Doctor to be wearing something really loud and in bad taste, or something, it was beyond credulity. It just was not. It didn't work. The only other way I guess it could have been is if they'd been in an adventure where they went to a planet where people wore clothes like that all the time, and the Doctor just grabbed one of the coats, and just stuck with it. And he's so arrogant that he just refused to admit it's bad. That kind of thing. There's other people wanted to change it and say it should have been all blue or one color. It's still got this patchwork look to it, though. It's kind of odd. So I still think the alien design thing would be a better explanation for it. And there's been other versions. I think he did a live performance at one point, and they didn't have the original coat, so they made one, and it actually looks a little better. I've seen pictures of him wearing it, but it just and he was saddled with that, and but a lot of the concepts and stories began to deteriorate here. People hate this one. I'm kind of defending it. I don't think it's as bad as people make it. I think it's just the violent attack on Perry. It was just like that's too much, especially since they just drop it and he just gets better and that's it. That was lazy. So it's a clumsy episode. So it's not great. But poor Colin Baker, of all the Doctors, and there's been troubles here and there over the years, none of them come close to being as screwed as he was. And it's really unfortunate and quite shameful, really, in how he was treated. He got some amount of justice in his Big Finish performances and episodes, and I like those. Those are pretty damn good. And he showed that yes, he's got what it takes to be a great Doctor. He's probably a guy that, and as a lot of people said this, they never would have saw him as a guy to be the Doctor, but I think he stepped up to it, and I think he deserves a better, closer look on what he was trying to do there, and just try to ignore the clutter that gets in his way. That's weighing him down. But yeah, I think he deserves a better look on that. As for in the lore, I think it fits pretty good that, of course, he had played the Citadel Guard on Gallifrey. He was with Colonel Maxwell, or was he a colonel yet, or a captain? I can't remember. But of course, he shot the Doctor, and it stands to reason that made quite the impression on the Doctor, subconsciously, of course, to where the regeneration process makes him look like the guy who shot him. And of course, other subconscious, I'm going to make him a complete a-hole. So, and of course, New Who brings that in for Capaldi, who had a similar situation where he had played a character before, and that stuck in his mind, and so he eventually takes on that form. Now, Colonel Maxwell, or General Maxwell, I guess he would be by now, could have been a character they could have utilized for Time War stories, and should have done. And there is some rumors that they might do an animated series with Paul McGann, and hopefully maybe they'll have Colin Baker play a role in that too. That would be kind of cool. I don't know that it would have anything to do with the Big Finish versions of the Time War, or if they're going to do a whole new version now that RTD will be back in charge. But we'll have to see. I always thought a Paul McGann series would be a cool thing to do just on the side, but there's only so much money to go around, so maybe it'll just be an animated thing. But we'll have to see. But anyway, so there we are, Twin Dilemma, off to a shaky start for Colin Baker, and unfortunately, things wouldn't turn out so great for him in this, none of which is his fault. But anyway, there we are, Twin Dilemma.